So pleased to be joined now by former senior military intelligence officer Philip Ingram. We love getting the experts here on talkTV to keep you informed about what is going on. Philip, what can you tell us is your understanding about what has actually occurred overnight?
Morning, Jake. Well, what's occurred overnight? Iranian airspace was closed for a period of time. There are reports of explosions around an Iranian airfield near a nuclear facility. There have been reports of Iranian air defense systems being activated, and unnamed spokesmen have told CBS News in the United States, unnamed US spokesman, that Israel had pre-warned the United States that they were going to attack Iran. The rest of it that we're getting at the moment is speculation. There's a lot of people are analysing information that doesn't really exist at the moment, and that is turning round into world leaders making statements about whether Israel is being constrained, what Iranian reaction is going to be. The bottom line is we don't know what the reality is, and we're in a dangerous moment at the period at the moment. Something has happened. It's probable that it's Israel responding to last weekend's attack, and that would be Israel putting one foot up the next ladder of escalation, on the rung of ladder of escalation. Whether they bring their second foot up and whether that causes Iran to respond, we'll only know as more information comes out.
Would you accept a point made by one of our brilliant panellists, Matthew Lazar, just before, I don't know if you heard it, just before you came on our screens, that this does seem like a fairly low-level response rather than a sort of all-out escalation? Would that be correct analysis? And is that maybe because of the pressure brought on Israel by the United States?
Yeah, from what we know, or what we're speculating at the moment, yes, it would seem to be that. And there is pressure. Netanyahu is in a difficult position. He's got an extreme right-wing element to his government. It's the first time Iran has directly attacked Israel, and therefore he has to respond. Can you imagine what would be going on in the UK if we'd been directly attacked by someone and then decided not to respond because the United States had said, nothing was too badly damaged, please leave it alone. So he has to respond. And if this is that response, it does seem to be very measured. But Iran is unpredictable. They seem to be playing everything down in the press at the moment, which is a good thing. But we'll only know as more detail comes out through the day.
And Philip, I think quite interesting, we saw in relation to the attack last Saturday that some unusual actors came to the aid of Israel. Yep. I don't think anyone would be surprised that the United Kingdom and the United States supported one of their closest allies. What does it say about the wider region that both Saudi Arabia and Jordan became involved? I mean, I suppose ultimately their own territorial airspace was breached by this attack as well. That may be why they became involved. But what does it say about wider sort of regional support for Israel that those two countries specifically came to Israel's aid?
Well, the history of all of this goes back to a Sunni Shia civil war that's been going on between fought out by proxies between Saudi Arabia and Iran for centuries, even before they were called the names that they're called now. And therefore, I'm not surprised that Saudi getting involved. Jordan is a little bit more interesting, and Iraq was apparently involved as well. But I think it sends a very clear message that the countries across the Middle East are behind what the West is doing in its support for Israel. So Israel isn't completely isolated here, and that's sending a very powerful message to Iran. And therefore, I think it's a very important message that was sent to Iran, which is why Iran does not want to escalate this, because it could turn into a full regional conflict really quite easily. And we're already seeing the different sides lining up, and Iran is pretty isolated.
And we know about Iran, certainly, that in terms of this wider conflict with Israel, that their history, their sort of modus operandi is to fight Israel or through proxies. Do you think we'll see an escalation of violence in other areas, maybe like the Lebanon, as a direct response to this rather than Iran striking back?
I don't think those different proxies need an excuse to escalate what they're doing, and therefore they'll take what's happened here, and we will probably see an escalation. Iran is fighting its war with Israel, and therefore with the wider region through proxies, and those proxies, it's stated within their founding charters that they don't agree with Israel's legal status to exist, and they therefore want to destroy it as a state and to kill all Jews, and then create a caliphate with Tehran, with the Grand Ayatollah in Iran at the center of that caliphate. That is their stated aim. Iran doesn't want to do that directly, but it's more than happy to stimulate that and keep it going through its proxies. It's not good for a negotiation stance when we're looking at what's going on inside Gaza, and it's not good for regional peace.
Philip, well, finally, you sort of precurse my final question is, of course, we're all talking about the escalation of the conflict between Iran and Israel, quite correctly. It's something we should all be concerned about. But we seem to have stopped talking about the ongoing conflict in Gaza. What is happening in Gaza? Are we seeing those humanitarian convoys? We know in response to pressure from America, the Israeli government opened up significant new humanitarian corridors. Are we seeing an increase in the amount of humanitarian aid getting into Gaza? And is Israel still prosecuting this war with the ferocity that it previously has done against Hamas?
Well, Israel has been reducing the ferocity of its attacks against Hamas over the coming weeks and months, partially because of international pressure, partially because they've had some success militarily, and partially because there isn't a military solution to this. So there is more humanitarian aid getting in. There seems to be less attacks causing civilian casualties, and that's why we're not getting it pushed into the news. It seems to be that the focus is now on Iran. But Gaza, there's no short-term or long-term solution to this. And even a humanitarian pause or a ceasefire without there being some form of longer-term solution is not going to bring stability into the region. And we're starting to see some countries trying to formally recognize Palestine in the United Nations. Now, they're already represented in the United Nations, but we're seeing an upping of the international political ante and all of this, trying to force Israel's hand into looking at this longer-term solution. Without that, everything else is just applying a sticking plaster on top of thousands of sticking plasters that have been applied over the years anyway.
Philip, thank you so much for joining us here on talkTV. We really do appreciate hearing your expert voice into what is a very, very complicated conflict that we are seeing develop there.